Pursuant to Standing Order 106 Sub 4, the committee is meeting to consider a request by members of the committee to undertake a study concerning a Public Health Agency of Canada contract. The floor is open. Dr. Ellis.
Well, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for everybody being here this morning. This is an exceedingly important time in Canadian history when we begin to look at the spending of this Liberal government in cahoots with the NDP. You know, we know very clearly that Canadians have had a significant difficulty with the reckless spending of this Liberal-NDP coalition government. And we also know very clearly that Tiff Macklin, the governor of the Bank of Canada, has said that domestic inflation is related to this government pouring their inflationary spending fuel on a fire. And we know also very clearly that Canadians are paying the price for that. We know that the cost of housing in this country has doubled. We know that interest rates have gone up quicker than any time in history. We know that inflation is at a 40-year high. We know that Canadians cannot heat their homes, feed their families, and keep a roof over their heads. And we also know very clearly from conversations with those very, very important people that we represent that this is not going to change because this Liberal-NDP government continues to do its dirty deeds with respect to inflationary spending. We hear from the people we represent every single day, Mr. Chair, and I know that you do too in PEI, that you hear from them telling you exactly how difficult it is to pay their bills. And I know that those other members sitting across from me hear from the people that they represent in this great nation as well. And when we also know that the visits to food banks are at an all-time high, we know that millions upon millions upon millions of people are visiting food banks every single month. We know that in the small town where I live, in Truro, Nova Scotia, that they have 1,800 people on their list who come to the food bank regularly. Things have gotten so bad. When I spoke to the mayor of the county of Colchester on Friday, that the food bank has reached out to the county now to ask them to pay their mortgage, that they continue to have to buy more food and figure out ways to feed the 1,800 people, including children, Mr. Chair, who are on their list. Now, the reason we're here, of course, is the spending of $150 million by this government on a failed business plan with Medicago. But we also know that realistically, the business dealings with this company, it's actually over $300 million because they originally spent $172 million for infrastructure and building, et cetera. And then they entered into contracts with this company for another $150 million. So talk about throwing bad money after good, potentially, or just more bad money after bad money. Chair, we also know very clearly that in 2003, Canada was one of the signatories of a WHO framework, the Convention on Tobacco Control, which made it very clearly in this document, Chair, as they call it at WHO, the FCTC, very clearly that Canada was one of the signatories on this, which also this government should have known that when they were part of a company with Philip Morris International, a tobacco company, that there was no way that this vaccine was going to be accepted. And therefore, of course, what did they do? They continued to spend more money. And we also know very clearly that they've spent money on a multitude of other examples. The ArriveCan app, colloquially known as the Arrive Scam app, which when you watch some of the testimony that's happening at the current time with respect to that particular app, that it appears to me now, you know what, I've obviously never developed an app, and I don't really know that much about it, but it appears to be two guys in their basement who didn't even develop an app, but acted as intermediaries and took a lot of money, $54 million from this Liberal-NDP coalition, and then farmed it out to some other people, which we now know very clearly from the media stories that have come out, that it was possible to develop this app in a weekend. It was that simple to actually do. And therefore, when all of this comes out, we know that some people got very rich in doing this. And again, it's an absolute travesty, I would suggest.
Order from Ms. Sidhu.
Is that relevant to today's, what Mr. Ellis is doing?
What I would say is that there's no motion in front of the committee at this time, but the agenda is to consider a request to undertake a study concerning Public Health Agency of Canada. The letter that compelled this meeting does refer to lost funds, and I would say that Dr. Ellis's comments are connected to that concept, so I'm not convinced that there is an issue of relevance here. Go ahead, Dr. Ellis.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. And oddly enough, doesn't it make perfect sense that our Liberal colleagues don't want us talking about these painful issues? And I think that we've established this very clearly in this committee previously. When those things come up that are difficult and hard and painful, we continue to get these interruptions over and over and over again. We saw that when we wanted to bring forward a study on opioids, Chair, when we got interrupted over and over again asking about the relevance of it. And of course, we do know very clearly that housing and poverty are associated with opioid use and misuse from this government actually now giving away powerful opioids to Canadians, which are being sold on the street and diverted in terms of their use. There, Chair, I would say I am digressing a bit, and I shall return to the actual motion. You know, when we look at this, again, this is $300 million now that we're talking about. And when we look at, you know, other scandals that have been involved, that this government, this NDP Liberal coalition government has been involved in, we know that this is a usual thing for them now. You know, the only thing, of course, perhaps that is more expensive is the Trans Mountain Pipeline cost overruns, which were at $30.9 billion. And I'll direct people to a Global News article with respect to that. So, I mean, obviously, that's in a different category. But you know what, Chair, I would suggest that the difficulty here is that many Canadians are so used to hearing these scandals and lack of fiscal responsibility. I'll say that again, yes, lack of fiscal responsibility, that they perhaps don't understand or don't want to realize or get numb. I think that's the better wording, Chair, is that they get numb to the fact that this is $300 million, which of course is a third of $1 billion with a B dollars, which is incredible, absolutely incredible amount of money. Therefore, Chair, the Conservatives believe that it's important that we study this issue. And therefore, Chair, I would like to move the following motion, and I'll read it in English, and there are copies available, and I think that we can circulate those, that given recent media reports that the Public Health Agency of Canada lost over $300 million on an unfulfilled contract, the committee undertake a study of the Public Health Agency of Canada losing over $300 million in taxpayers' money for an unfulfilled contract. The committee holds 6 hours of meetings on this matter, and that each current meeting of the Health Committee is expanded by 1 hour to address this matter, and that the committee hear from the Minister of Health, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, President of the Public Health Agency of Canada, the President of the Treasury Board, and officials from the Health Ministry, and other witnesses deemed relevant by the committee, and that the hearing begin at the next available meeting, and that the committee produce a report on its finding and report it to the House. Chair, I would suggest, you know, one of the other things that I think is relevant to point out is when you look at the Public Accounts of Canada 2023, of which I have a giant copy here on my desk. This is 3 volumes. And when you look at through this massive tome of where this possibly could end up, and on volume 3, it's on page 143. And, you know, I don't know what the font is, but I would suggest it might be 6, it might be 8. Under this line on page 143 of volume 3, what does it say? It says, in incredibly ridiculous terms, unfulfilled contract by a vendor, amount of loss, $150 million, amount not expected to be recovered, $150 million. Shameful. I mean, when you think about it, when you look at this giant encyclopedic tome and you understand that this government thinks that the accountability for Canada is related to the fact that they can bury this 2/3 of the way through a 4-inch document printed on 2 sides, that's an acceptable way to do business on behalf of Canadians. This Liberal-NDP coalition tried to hide at least that $150 million. And again, why do I say it's over $300 million that this coalition has lost? As I said previously, they also invested in this company, which they knew was going to produce something that could never be used, even though their nefarious purpose was to attempt to take this vaccine and shove it into the COVAX program after they had already taken vaccines out of that, which is the only G7 country to have done so. That's a whole entirely other shady story, Chair. But I do believe that Canadians deserve and demand an explanation for how they believe that they could possibly bury, hide, and lose $300 million in taxpayer money. So asking this committee to study this and attempting to be generous with how we might all spend our time doing this, this is exceedingly important, and therefore, Chair, the Conservatives move that we here in Health Committee start a study on this, calling those witnesses as we mentioned in the motion, and taking a minimum of 6 hours of time here, such that the committee needs to study this on behalf of Canadians. So, Chair, I will leave it at that. I'm sure I'll have much other things to say later, and then just want to make sure I'm back on the list to come back to, Chair. But I believe the motion is order and would like to hear comments on that. Thank you.
The motion is in order.